So number 4 is this book right here. It's called Effortless Mastery by the great pianist Kenny Werner. Now this book was really, really important for me because I actually read it like right after I started music school about 8 years ago. And I think it's really important for everyone to read like when they're just starting to take music seriously because it addresses a lot of really important mental issues that musicians deal with. Now, this book can get kind of esoteric at times and it covers a lot of different things, but the main things that really resonated with me were sort of avoiding negativity and thinking about your own playing. Now, he actually mentions how a lot of musicians can actually sort of feel attacked and bad when they see other people playing music who may be better than them. And they think like they're comparing themselves and they can't even listen to music without having this comparison going on. And actually, I remember that used to happen to me a lot of times. Like I'd be listening to someone else play and be thinking like, can I play that thing that they're playing? No, I can't play that. Oh, yes, I can. I can play. Like, things that go through people's minds that really shouldn't be going through your mind when you're listening to music, and you should just kind of be appreciating it. Another really important thing that he discusses is how does it feel just to play one note on your instrument? Spending time just playing one note and see how easy you can make that feel. And the last thing that really resonated with me was actually thinking of when you're playing, just observing yourself playing. Instead of trying to play, observing your hands do the work when you're playing. That's something that really, when I think about it, it helps me a lot to get in a more relaxed state when I'm playing music. And that relaxed state just sort of carries over to everything when it has to do with music and really life in general. Number 3 is this book right here called Reading Studies for Guitar. And actually, this is a Berklee book. I didn't go to Berklee, but this book is really, really good, not just for learning sight reading. And I know you're thinking, oh man, sight reading's the most boring thing ever. I don't want to sight read. I'm clicking off the video. Don't click off the video. But anyway, so this book, more than anything, I got a much enhanced fretboard knowledge out of working through this book. And the reason is because every single study in the book goes through all the different positions on the guitar. Before I started using this book, I knew how to read a little bit, but mainly in the 9th position. And once I went through this book, because it goes through every position and every single key on the guitar, I got like way better at just reading anywhere on the guitar. Plus, I was forced to work out fingerings in every single key and every single position for the major scales and minor scales. One other thing is you also have to read through some written out chord voicings in this book, which can be pretty challenging even though they're actually simple chords. They're like the open chords like G and C that you would normally play just by reading a diagram, but you actually see them written out, and getting that perspective is really, really helpful. Number 2 on my list of books that changed my guitar playing is this book right here, Guitar Comping by Barry Galbraith. Now, this book was so good for my knowledge of guitar chords, and from the second that I started working out of it, literally day number 1, I was like, wow, there are so many possibilities in here that I had no idea about before I checked this book out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, warning, this book doesn't have any tabs in it. So you need to know how to read a little bit in order to be able to work out of this book. A lot of the chord voicings that he uses are really easy to play actually, and super simple, and it's just a way that they're contextualized. For example, just right there in that part that I played, this is a really cool thing that's going on because he actually uses a B flat major 7 over a G minor chord. And that's what made me start to realize, like, wait a second, if it says G minor in a tune, I don't have to just play the notes that are in a G minor 7. You can play all kinds of other chords on top. And my number one book that changed my guitar playing is this book right here, The Advancing Guitarist by Mick Goodrick. Now, this book is a doozy. There is a ton of stuff in this book, and Mick himself admits that it has several lifetimes worth of material in it, and he doesn't even know all the stuff that's in the book that he wrote. Which is pretty crazy too, because if you look at it, this book's not a huge book. It's only about 115 pages. But a lot of the concepts that he talks about in the book are just, they take like just one of those concepts will take you a couple of years to master. Now the part that I got the most out of with this book is actually the first section. It's called Fingerboard Mechanics. And this is where I got introduced to the idea of playing on one string at a time with the guitar. Mick actually calls this the science of the unitar. Now, this is something I hadn't thought of before at all. I always learned everything in positions, the classic 5 positions of the major scale, the 5 positions of the pentatonic scale, and it was really limiting my playing. Every time I played a solo, I felt like I was always stuck in one section of the fretboard. And then once I started learning all the stuff that I knew on one string at a time, it made it so much easier to move around the guitar fluidly and naturally. And this concept of working on things with one string at a time was the inspiration and basis for the Jamsville GPS Fretboard Fundamentals course. Because when I made this course, I was thinking about how I would relearn the guitar to start and be able to get off the ground faster and not be ever stuck in positions when I was learning. And I would have learned it by starting with one string at a time instead of starting with positions, which is what most people do. Now, Mick doesn't really focus too much on learning the notes specifically on one string. Rather, the actual mechanics of moving up and down a string, playing with one finger, playing with 2 fingers, all different combinations of 2 fingers. There's 1 and 2. There's 1 and 3. 1 and 4, 2 and 4, 3 and 4, all these different combinations of 2, combinations of 3 fingers, and then obviously all 4 fingers, and really exploring all the different possibilities of being able to play a solo on one string. It's really, really informative to limit yourself like that in your playing. And if you're someone who already is familiar with positions, after you start incorporating that single string stuff, you really start to see, once you go back to allowing yourself to use everything that you know, all the positions, that it's way easier to move around the guitar fretboard and you start seeing things totally differently. Now, one thing I will say about this book is that it's really hard to work out of if you aren't already kind of getting to an advanced level with your playing, hence the title, The Advancing Guitarist. Because there's a lot of different things that are written out, and it's just a lot of stuff to absorb, and it's not a method book. He says right there in the foreword that it's not a method book. It's basically just a dump of a bunch of information that is really helpful. So if you want to drastically improve your guitar playing, make sure you pick up one or all of those books. And if you want to start from the ground up, learning the fretboard the right way so that you can feel comfortable playing in any key, anywhere in the fretboard without ever feeling like you're stuck, make sure you check out the Jamsville GPS Fretboard Fundamentals course. Links to all that stuff is going to be down in the description below. Until next time, listen, learn, and jam.